Hi, I'm Nicole, and this is Nick's Picks. So every month, I'm going to post a video just talking about the books that I picked out to read that month. So this is my February video. For a little bit more about me, my background, what I like to read, I hope you'll check out the first video that I posted with my January picks. But going forward, I'd like to just jump right in. So that being said, today we're going to talk about the 4 books that I read in February. Sorry if I sound a little congested, I'm just getting over the flu. So the first book is Autobiography by Christina Lauren. Hate to say it, but this is the very first Christina Lauren book that I have been disappointed with. So the premise of this is, it's a romance, a male-male romance. I love male-female romance and male-male romance. And I love Christina Lauren. They actually introduced me to like adult romance novels. Theirs was the first that I had picked up back when I started reading romance. The Unhoneymooners, still probably my favorite book of theirs. I've read at least 10 at this point. Love them. What I love about them in general is that I feel like they have the perfect balance between fantasy and real. We're all looking for some fantasy in a romance novel, but sometimes, and again, I love all levels of everything. And so like something like Hallmark movies, that kind of a romance, a really cheesy, clean, no smut romance, I could enjoy that. There's a place for that. Super smutty romance where it's like pure fantasy and like really not realistic, I could enjoy that too. I always felt they struck a great balance between that. I feel like their dialogue was never overly cheesy or unrealistic. I felt like their smut level was perfect. I will often use the word smut to describe romance novels. I don't mean that in a negative way. I love that word. I feel like it is so perfect. You know exactly what I mean when I say it. And that is something that I'd like to know about going into a romance novel. What that level is, because I feel like if I'm expecting a lot and I don't get any, that's disappointing. Or you know, if it's something fetishy that maybe I'm not into, I'd want to know that, and that's disappointing. So I just feel like in general with Christina Lauren, their smut level's perfect. We get sex scenes, and again, just doesn't seem too unrealistic, but at the same time, you know, everybody's doing everything right and saying the right things and giving you that fantasy that you want. So I do love male-male romance, and I was so excited to see that they wrote a male-male romance, because most of their stuff is male-female. So I was super excited going into this book. Separate recommendation, my favorite romance of all time is Him by Serena Bowen and Elle Kennedy, male-male. I probably will mention that in every video I make because I love that book so much. I've read the sequels, I've read the spin-offs, and it is wonderful. So if that's something you like to read, I definitely recommend that. So like I said, as someone that likes male-male and likes Christina Lauren, this seemed like home run before I even opened it. I really dislike this book. And I have, again, I hate saying that. I don't want to, like I said, bash anyone or, you know, say anything disrespectful. I have the utmost respect for Christina Lauren. So I hate, you know, saying anything negative, but I would definitely not recommend this book, and this is why I didn't like it. So the premise of this book is Tanner and Sebastian, that's our couple. Tanner is bisexual and grew up in California where he was like kind of out and, you know, established. They move because his mom got like a job offer or whatever. So now they're in Utah in a Mormon town. And the guy he falls in love with, Sebastian, is Mormon. So Tanner has a best friend, Autumn, and they decide to take this seminar class where you have to write a book within a semester. And Sebastian had taken the class previously. He's older, and he ended up getting like a book deal out of it. So he comes back. It's kind of like advised in the class, and it was kind of like when they saw each other or whatever. It's kind of like something was set off, and so they like each other. And Sebastian turns out is also gay and likes Tanner, and so we have this whole situation now. So in any homosexual situation, unfortunately, just like with life, there's usually an inherent obstacle there. So whether it's the parent that doesn't approve, or them worrying about coming out because of friend approval or whatever it is. We usually have that. I mean, every romance has an obstacle. That's typically the one for the, there's usually some factor of that when you're dealing with a same-sex romance. Now we've added another layer by the fact that one of them is Mormon. So we're dealing with this super strict religious family community situation and personal situation, like somebody that's Mormon and is in a very strict religion like that, has strong beliefs themselves as to what's right and wrong and what they've been taught their whole life and what they think God's going to think of what they're doing and all that kind of stuff. So my problem is, this is a huge high stakes situation. And my biggest issue was that I was not invested in this romance enough, and I'm not quite sure why they were. I don't know why Sebastian or Tanner felt, I don't know why they were in love. I don't know why we were saying I love you. I don't know any of that. Like, I don't know why I don't know why they connected. I feel like, and that, again, like I said, so out of the norm for Christina Lauren, because usually I love their character's development. And again, any romance novel or Hallmark movie or anything, we either have like a established situation where we've got, an enemies to lover type thing, or a coworker that you end up falling in love with, or even a stranger off the street, but there's like some kind of meet cute where you're forced into this like funny, cute moment together or something like that. This was as simple as they saw each other in the class and all bets were off kind of thing. And even if that was like a strictly physical attraction and it was just kind of like maybe Sebastian, who's the Mormon, saying, ooh, you know what? Maybe he never felt attracted to a guy like he did to Tanner, purely physically. That's fine too, if that was the way it was going to go, but it's not. Like, we kind of, we're told that they love each other. That's the best way I could say it, is we're told that they love each other, because I don't really see that playing out any other way. I have no investments in them. I'm not cheering them on because I'm not sure why they're together. They never had even like a moment where they really like divulge themselves to each other, or, we hear a lot about it, like, oh, they go on these hikes and they talk and whatever, but we're not actually ever seeing that connection like being made. Like, I have never like, I don't know how else to explain it. Like, I feel like we're just kind of like told that they're getting closer and feeling more for each other without actually like seeing it. Like, usually in any kind of romance, especially like a teen type romance, like we're seeing them hang out with friends, and there is one or two scenes of that, but like not, again, enough to where I've seen any of the romance furthered along here. So that was my biggest critique, is that I don't know why these two boys care about each other, and therefore why anyone would be considering giving up or asking someone to give up such huge things for this romance, because I don't see it. The other problem to me is that when you're dealing with something like this, where you're going to talk about a very specific situation, this is a Mormon gay person, we need to know a lot about Mormons. Unless you are Mormon or know Mormons, you have to know how this works. You have to know what's, quote, right and wrong in their eyes and all that kind of stuff. And trust me, I do now. I'm an expert after reading this book, so they did their due diligence. We know everything, but it's hard when you write about something like that, because you're like so obligated to give out so much information that it becomes a little unnatural. And so, I feel like it was a bit redundant hearing about, their beliefs on it, which, by the way, apparently for Mormons, it's okay to have like the thoughts, but you can't act on it. So, but we hear that 100 times in the book. We hear, and again, the way he's like, maybe Tanner's Googling something, and it just, sometimes it didn't seem natural, or it just seemed a bit like overkill, like really having to like drive home like this separate learning system that we needed to have in place in order to understand the romance and the stakes that were involved. And the other thing that I will say is Tanner's parents. So Sebastian's the Mormon. Obviously, his parents are very strict, and his father's actually like I forget what it's called, but like the head priest or whatever it is. And so he's got the super strict family and the pressures of appearances and all of that, and then Tanner, on the other hand, his parents are so the opposite. Like, they cannot be cooler about like everything. And I know that's like wonderful. And I know some people do experience that. But it's just, a lot of it was so convenient. So basically, both of Tanner's parents, their backstory was just perfect for helping their teen navigate this. So his mom was Mormon. She originally was from that community. And when they were younger, her sister, Tanner's aunt, came out as being a lesbian and was kind of like, kicked out of the community and the family and all of that. And so his mom opted to leave as well because she hated how that went down. And that's why they had moved to California or whatever. And so now that they're back, his mom is both supportive and a little unsupportive, like in the sense of she kind of encourages him to not share his sexuality with a lot of people. Even the best friend that he has doesn't know at first that he's bisexual, because his parents are kind of encouraging him to, kind of keep that quiet because of the strict town that they're in, and they're worried about him being accepted. Then when they find out he likes this person and there's a bit of a relationship going on, they're even more nervous because for, two reasons. They don't want him to become too invested if Sebastian's not able to give him what he needs, and they don't want him to ask someone to do that either, unless it's like, like a sure thing kind of thing. Like, they just don't know that he knows how serious and how important all of this is. So on the one hand, they kind of want him to be a little closeted, but then on the other hand, they are like super supportive in their own right. Like, and it says it, she wears the rainbow pajamas to bed, and she gives him affirming bumper stickers all the time. Like, she's like so pro, pride, and she's, all for him being bisexual, as is his dad. So he can talk to them about absolutely anything. And again, that's great. A lot of people have that relationship with their parents, but it just, in this book, seemed so convenient that they could just, their past kind of matches with his present. Even his dad is Jewish and married someone that wasn't Jewish, so there was a little bit of an issue there. So it's like it all lines up for them to like really be super understanding and knowing what it's like, and wanting to both help him and also kind of shield him. So there's that whole dynamic. And again, Sebastian on his end, does he want to admit that he's gay? Does he want to give himself that label? Because it's, again, okay to have the thoughts, but not to actually move forward with it. And of course, again, as I don't want to say too much and give the whole book away, but as it's happening, maybe they happen to mention someone else in the community that did that like gives him pause on doing it. It just like all kind of like, to me, was like on paper, like this is what this would be like but I just didn't actually get the feelings behind it and the emotion behind it. And I feel terrible saying that, because I know, and I read everything. I read the book cover to cover. So I read even in reading the acknowledgments, I know that they wanted, how important this book was to them to write. They said they had wanted to do it for a long time. One of them was a counselor in Utah and saw a bunch of teens that had this problem. That's what made her want to write the story. So I know they, like I said, they did their due diligence. They thanked a lot of people that helped them. You could see that they really went above and beyond to make sure they researched this situation, the community, and all that. And I don't know why it didn't hit home, like, at least for me. Like, I think the biggest problem, aside from, again, a couple of cliche things with the parents, and aside from just the fact that I didn't actually feel anything for this love story. I feel like this was such a high stakes romance. You need to have a reason to want to do this. It would be one thing if Sebastian was dealing with maybe falling in love with a friend that he had growing up, that's somebody that he knew or that he was like truly in love with, and now it's like, oh, I have to acknowledge my feelings and whether or not I'm willing to face what that means, within my identity as a Mormon or whatever that is. This was just like a rando kid that walked into the class, and again, barely even a meet cute. There was not really at all. Like, at first, like, Tanner doesn't even know Sebastian's gay. He's a Mormon. He would assume he probably wasn't. So again, it was just kind of super convenient that he even was gay. And again, just I didn't see any like established connection between them. We're just often told, oh, I was with Sebastian again today and he's helping me work on my book and all that kind of stuff. Oh, we went for a hike and all this kind of stuff. And, you know, we know they're spending time together, but we're not actually like at any point, to me, like watching a love develop. To me, this was like a strictly, which it also could be if it was told that way, like just a random, like, oh, I'm a Mormon and I see this hot person that I didn't realize I was, you know, made me realize maybe I'm attracted to men. And so I want to just have sex with him or whatever it is, like that, you know, that would have been fine too, but that's not like what it was. And again, just the whole love thing and the idea of, am I willing to give this up for you and all that, like, I don't really know why they would have even considered it based on this particular relationship. Yeah, I just, it was hard. And again, the book itself too, I feel like autobiography. That to me is a lighthearted, fun title. As you could assume, like the book that he ends up writing for the class is kind of about this experience. And I feel like, so it's almost like a little like misleading, like we're kind of, and again, I hate to like say, oh, well, Christina Lauren does this, so they can only do this. That's not true. I mean, if they want to write something different, they can. They wrote a horror book that I read that I absolutely loved. I thought that was great too. It's called House, by the way. It was really good. But I feel like in this case, I just felt like I was expecting something different. And I will also say zero smut. Like zero. And the fact that I didn't connect to this emotionally either, it's kind of like, well, what's left? So if this wasn't like a sexual thrill and I didn't really feel the emotional thrill here, this to me was just like an on paper, this is possibly, you know, Mormon, what we believe, what I would have to do to get past it, to be with you. But again, I was not actually invested in actual characters. So, and in the actual romance here. So I was not satisfied emotionally with this romance. I was not satisfied sexually at all. There was zero smut, like zero. Which again, I'm only saying because I would want to know that going in. Like to me, I was expecting something different. And again, it's not even like I read all different levels of that. So there's plenty of books that close the door on the sexual stuff, but the other stuff like makes up for it. An example there, Boyfriend Material, Husband Material by Alexis Hall. Alexis Hall is amazing, and what a wonderful writer. Those are male books, and I love them. And we don't see a lot of the smut factor there either. Often closing the door on that, but just the flirting is good, and the kissing is good, and the emotional aspect of those stories are good. That did not hit for me here. So I think I've said all I can say. I would not recommend this book, unfortunately. Certainly not your first Christina Lauren, certainly not your first male. Yeah. The next book was a wonderfully romantic Valentine gift from my husband, How I'll Kill You by Ren DeStefano. This was a great book. I really enjoyed this book. So I don't know what I would classify it as. It was romance. It was kind of thriller. Not really like mystery. I don't think there's anything that's like going to super shock you. Little things here and there come up you might not expect, but definitely like a thriller, like you want to see what's going to happen. So the premise is it's about triplet serial killers. So again, just like a very unique, something different. So Sissy, Moody, and Iris are sisters. That's not their real names. They were kind of brought up in the foster care system, abandoned when they were kids. And so now that they're older, they're kind of together again. That's what they call each other. And the whole idea is that they date people, and you know the men that they date or fall in love with, whatever, they kill them, and then they move on. So up until now, Moody and Iris have kind of been doing the killing, and Sissy is kind of on cleanup. Like she really takes care of cleaning up the mess afterwards. So the book opens on Sissy picking out her first mark. So it's time for her to kind of carry her weight with the killing. So, as expected, she gets involved with this guy. She goes by Jade. Obviously, they don't use their real names when they're on a job or whatever you want to call it. So she goes by Jade, and she meets the guy, Edison, and ends up falling in love with him and second guesses, do I really want to do this? So we don't know, is she going to kill him? Is she not? The sisters have no tolerance for not doing it. Like, you know, they're kind of working against her in that sense. Like, she can't really confide in them about falling in love with him. If anything, I would say this is like a love story between the sisters, for sure. I feel like this is mostly about their dynamic and how far they're willing to go for each other. And it's very interesting. It's something, like I said, something different. In terms of the smut factor, it's there a little bit, nothing over the top. You know, it was fine. It's definitely not why you're reading this book. But the premise was unique. Like I said, little things here and there you might see coming, you might not. There was nothing that hugely shocked me. You know, but you're really invested in the characters. Great character development. It's not like I couldn't put this down, read it in a day kind of thing. No, it took me a little while to read it. You do want to know what happens, but the pacing is a little slow. The other thing I will say is great ending. Like, as you get further and further into it, you kind of thinking to yourself, how is this going to end? Like, and be believable. Like, because, you know, this whole situation is unbelievable, but, you know, they have to it has to make sense at the end, and we have to do something that, you know, might actually happen. So I feel like she did a good job with that. I feel like I'm totally satisfied with the ending. So yes, I would definitely recommend this book. Next, we have Frida McFadden, The Perfect Son. So, as I mentioned in my last video, huge Frida McFadden fan. Recent Frida McFadden fan. Last summer is when somebody recommended her to me, and I've gone from there. I've read, again, 1 million books at this point of hers. And the book I read last month, The Coworker, was very low on my list. A first disappointment that I had for her. This one, I will say, I definitely would recommend. I couldn't put it down. It was like a 2-day thing. I was done. I think it's so great that she is able to surprise people. Like I said, when you read a lot of mysteries and a lot of thrillers, there comes a point where, like, you know, without sleuthing, without, like, trying to figure it out, you still just, like, know the possibilities. You know kind of what type of character you're looking for that might be doing this, and you know the very few kind of scenarios how things could play out in a mystery. And I feel like she still manages to friggin' come up with a great shock. And even if you figure out the big shock or whatever it is, there's still like 1 or 2 other things that she's not done, like right till the end of the book. Like, she'll still get you with some other things you didn't expect. So that being said, this book in particular, I had a thought at the very beginning, very, very beginning, that ended up being exactly how this played out. So I personally was a little disappointed with that, through no fault of hers, though. I will say, I don't know that most people would have that thought. I'm not sure why I even did. So I feel like most people probably would be surprised. And again, even knowing what I thought I knew and whatever, I still wanted to see how it played out. Like, it's still, the chapters are very short, edge of your seat. You still don't want to put it down. I still, even though I might have known how it was heading, I still wanted to see if that was the case. I wanted to see how it was going to play out. So again, the premise is Erica, it's told from her point of view, has a son, Liam, and she has a daughter, Hannah, and husband, Jason. But her son, Liam, she's always known there's something off about him, meaning like sociopath, psychopath type thing. So when he was a kid, he's, you know, did something, and even a couple of other things like that he has said and done that, like, you know, kind of tipped them off to something is probably wrong here. So she has spent his whole life worrying that something's going to happen or he's going to do something weird. You know, sends him to a therapist kind of thing, who kind of confirms that he might be a sociopath or psychopath, whatever. And with those kind of people, like, they're very good at, they have no emotion, and they're good at, like, faking it and, like, making you believe things because there's just no emotional repercussions for them. So she can't even trust, like, that he loves her, you know, like, she doesn't know, like, if he really is, like, deranged in that sense, like, she doesn't know if she could trust anything about him. So something happens to a girl, and he becomes, like, the prime suspect. Everyone thinks he did it. She's pretty convinced that he did it. And that's kind of the premise of the story. Like, did he do it? You know, like, we don't know. So you're not really sure the whole book how this is really going to play out. And it's told, again, from Erica's perspective, and also, the girl that's taken or whatever, it's told a little bit from her too. Like, we hear from her at some point too. So, that's the whole idea of it. Like I said, I had a thought. I don't know if most people would have the thought. Whether you do or you don't, it was still a very quick read, a very fun read. Didn't want to put it down kind of thing, and satisfying, and played out well. And I would definitely recommend it. And last, most exciting, Bride by Ali Hazelwood. So this gets like 5 million stars from me. This was an awesome, awesome book. This was so good. So if you do like Twilight, this is like adult Twilight. This is amazing. I cannot even describe how wonderful this book was. In watching booktube videos myself, this came up a lot. So I recently went to Barnes & Noble, and of course, even though I have a million books I haven't read, bought a million more, and this was one of them because it's been on my TBR. I cannot explain how much I like this book. This was wonderful on so many levels. That's the thing. It was wonderful on so many levels. So it's both kind of romance and mystery a little bit. Let me start with the premise. The premise is Misery Lark, who's a vampire. In this world, there's vampires, werewolves, and humans. Misery Lark is a vampire. And long story short, in order to kind of keep the peace, like, so her dad is like a vampire councilman, very high up. So when she was a kid, she was the collateral. So she was sent to live with the humans, and then the humans sent someone to live with the vampires as collateral. So they were almost like hostages. Like, if something went wrong, like, they would be the first ones dead, kind of thing. So that's how she grew up. So she doesn't quite fit amongst the vampires. When she is old enough to be done with that, she doesn't even come back to live with the vampires. She stays with the humans, where she also doesn't fit in. She's kind of like, she kind of disguises that she is a vampire because she's living there. But she made a friend when she was growing up. They had a foster girl come live with her, so she had someone, and that's her best friend, Serena. So she ends up staying with the humans to, be with Serena. But she doesn't quite fit anywhere. So she's not really a vampire, she's not really a human, and she doesn't know the wares. So at this point in the beginning, she's called back home to her dad because he wants to marry her to, kind of use her as collateral again. He wants to marry her to the alpha werewolf. So things have shifted now. The person in power for the humans and the person in power for the werewolves have changed. They're kind of establishing maybe an alliance, so he wants to make sure that they're in there somewhere. So he wants to have an alliance with the werewolves. They're going to marry his daughter with the alpha werewolf, who's Lo Moreland. So that's pretty much it. So basically we have this marriage where they've never met each other. They don't meet each other till the day of the wedding, between Misery and Lo. The reason she agrees to it, again, I don't want to spoil anything, but this is told pretty early on. Her friend Serena kind of goes missing. And that's part of why she agrees to this marriage, because she's trying to get to the bottom of what's going on, doesn't know who might be involved, blah, blah, blah. So I won't say more than that in terms of spoiling it. So there's mystery there too. So we're figuring out what's going on with Serena. We're also kind of now involved in werewolf politics. Like, there's, maybe some dissent and, who might be involved in this and all this kind of stuff. And we've also got the romance between Misery and Lo going on. And I just can't explain. When I say it's good on so many levels, it's so smart. So when you write a supernatural book like this, there's a lot to do. You have to establish what myths are true and false about vampires and werewolves. Everything has to make sense. Everything has to be consistent. She's got the political structures going on between all three groups of people, and it works, all of it. It's like the perfect thing, and it's without being too explanatory. Like, I was saying, like with the Mormon stuff, like you have to like constantly like make sure your reader knows what's going on. Like, we know what's going on. It's not ever boring. It's not ever whatever. Like, we find out as we find out, and it's just perfect. And we're able to keep track of it. There's not like too much going on. There's not too many rules and all that kind of stuff. So we're able to keep track of it. So it's so smart. It's funny. It is so funny. Like it is funny. Like it just like her writing is humorous. It just works. It keeps you entertained. And the romance is so good. Smut factor is perfect. Perfect to high. It is good. It is definitely good. Fantasy. It's one of those, fantasy, but like it works. Like and it's perfect. So I feel like on all of those levels, this book just works. And also, what a cover. I'm saying, I've mentioned before, I'm like a sucker for that stuff. I will pick something up just because I like the cover. And that's why they make these wonderful covers, because that's what a lot of people do. But I love it. It's perfect. I'm saying, like, I'm getting emotional just thinking about it. Like this, and I don't often say I would reread something, and I don't often reread something, but I could see at some point probably rereading this. This might be a reread for me. It was really, really good. I can't even describe it. It was definitely good, and it's making me very excited that I now know how great Allie Hazelwood is, because I plan on reading much more. Like I said, I have a book of hers that I haven't read yet. I can't believe it. I can't wait to get into that. Yeah, and I can't even, I don't even know what else to say besides this was like so great. And if you like a paranormal romance, or even just a romance, or if this is, let me try a paranormal romance, perfect first one, because it is really good. And if you liked Twilight, definitely, because this is just like adult Twilight. So perfect though. Again, like I said, on every level, it just worked. So I really loved it. So that's it for February. I've already started my first March book, and it's actually really good. So I'm excited to talk about that too. So I'll see you soon. Thanks. Bye.